Ambassador John Collins took a deep breath as he walked toward the center of the enormous chamber. His footsteps echoed across the polished stone floor. 300 pairs of alien eyes followed his every move. Some blinked with multiple eyelids. Others glowed in strange colors. All watched him with growing tension. The Galactic Council chamber was designed to inspire awe. Its high ceiling showed moving images of stars and planets. The seats rose in wide circles, giving each alien representative a clear view of the speaking platform. Today, that platform held a single human. John straightened his dark blue uniform. The silver pin of Earth shone on his chest. For 20 years, he had served as humanity's voice in this chamber. Humans had gained a reputation as peacekeepers, as problem solvers. When two alien species couldn't agree, they often asked for a human mediator. This made what John had to say today even more shocking. Representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice firm and clear. I stand before you with news that will change our shared future. The translator devices hummed, converting his words into the hundreds of languages used by council members. For decades, humanity has worked alongside you all to maintain peace. We have helped negotiate treaties. We have offered aid during disasters. We have shared our technology freely. The Zinthari delegation nodded their gray, hairless heads. Last year, human doctors had helped them fight a terrible disease. The Avarians fluttered their colorful wings in agreement. Human engineers had recently helped rebuild their moon colony after a meteor strike. Today, I must deliver a message that breaks with our peaceful history, John continued. His heart pounded, but his voice remained steady. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we're going to war. The chamber erupted. The calm, organized meeting dissolved into chaos in seconds. The Avarians' wings beat so fast, they created small whirlwinds. The normally silent Grell began making high-pitched noises of distress. The huge Zinthari representatives stood up, their bodies tense with surprise. Order. We will have order. The council leader, a tall, four-armed alien named Vorketh, struck a glowing staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber, louder than the noise of the upset representatives. Slowly, the room grew quiet again. Ambassador Collins, Vorketh said, all four of his eyes narrowed. This is an extraordinary statement. Humans have never declared war since joining the council. Against whom do you intend to fight? John raised his hand. A hologram appeared above his palm. It showed a dark shape moving between stars. The shape had no clear form. It seemed to shift and change as it moved. We call them the Void Harbingers, John explained. They are not a known species. They have never sent representatives to this council, but they are real, and they are coming. The Drovian representative, a small being with skin like blue crystal, stood up. This is absurd. Humans imagine enemies where none exist. They seek to gain power through fear. John looked directly at the Drovian. 6 months ago, the colony world of Terran Nova went silent. All communication stopped. When our ships arrived, they found no life. The entire planet had been stripped of all living things. He waved his hand. The hologram changed to show a dead world. Where there had once been oceans and forests, there was only bare rock. 2 weeks later, the same thing happened to the mining outpost on Proxima IV. Then 3 more worlds along the same path. John's eyes moved across the chamber. The evidence shows these Void Harbingers are moving toward the core worlds of the Council. Their path will take them through Zinthari space next, then Avarian territory, then Earth. He closed his hand. The hologram disappeared. We did not choose this war, but we choose to fight it. Humanity asks the Council to join us. If we stand together, we might survive. If we remain divided, all our worlds will end up like this. He showed the dead planet again. The chamber was completely silent now. The war had begun. 6 months earlier, Lily Winters sat alone in the small observation room. The light from 3 computer screens lit up her tired face. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and empty coffee cups surrounded her workspace. As a science officer at the edge of human space, she was used to long, quiet shifts. The deep space listening post wasn't an exciting assignment. Most days, Lily monitored normal space traffic and did routine scans. The station orbited a gas giant at the very edge of human territory. Few ships came this way. Lily yawned and reached for her coffee, only to find the cup empty. She was about to get up for a refill when one of her screens flashed a warning. An unusual signal was coming from beyond the border of charted space. "Computer, analyze signal pattern," she said, suddenly wide awake. The computer hummed. "Unknown signal type, not matching any registered species communication." Lily leaned forward. This was unusual, but not necessarily important. New species were discovered every few years, but something about the signal pattern bothered her. She ran it through additional filters. The pattern became clearer. It wasn't just one signal, but thousands of tiny signals moving together, like a swarm. "Computer, compare signal density to known life forms." The answer made her sit up straight. Signal density matches hive-based life forms. Closest match: Terran bees or ants, but on a massive scale. For the next week, Lily tracked the signals. They moved in a straight line, passing through a distant star system. When the signals left that system, something else happened. All normal communications from that system stopped. Lily sent her findings to her superior, Commander Paul Harris. She marked the report as urgent. 3 days later, she received a short reply. "Findings inconclusive. Continue regular monitoring duties." Lily stared at the message in disbelief. How could they dismiss this? She sent more data, more analysis. Each time, her reports were ignored or dismissed. One night, as she tracked the signals moving closer to inhabited space, she made a decision. She called her old friend, Captain Frank Rogers. Frank's face appeared on her screen. His beard had more gray than she remembered, but his eyes were still kind. "Lily, been ages. How's life at the edge of nowhere?" "Not good, Frank. I need your help. Something's coming, and no one will listen." Frank's smile faded as Lily shared her data. Unlike her superiors, he asked questions, wanted to understand. "The U.S. horizon is only 2 jumps from your position," he said finally. "We're on a routine patrol. I could divert for a navigation system check near your coordinates." 2 days later, Frank's exploration ship arrived. Lily transferred to the horizon, bringing all her data. "We'll do a quick look," Frank told his crew. "If Lily's right, we need to know what we're dealing with." The horizon jumped to the last system where the signals had been detected. What they found made even the most experienced crew members gasp. The planet that should have been there, a small colony world with about 3,000 settlers, was still in its orbit. But it was wrong. The blue-green world on their charts was now gray and lifeless. No water, no plant life, no response to their calls. Frank authorized a landing party. Lily went down with them, wearing a protective suit. The surface was like nothing she had ever seen. Everything organic had been removed. Not destroyed. Removed. As if something had carefully extracted every living cell. In the main colony building, they found the last recording. A terrified colonist spoke quickly. "They came from the dark, not ships like ours. Like living things, but huge. They sent smaller things down. They're taking everything. The animals, the plants, people too. They consume. Please, warn Earth. The recording ended there. Back on the ship, Frank looked at Lily. "You were right. We need to get this information to Earth immediately." As the horizon prepared to jump to hyperspace, their sensors picked up the swarm signals again. They were getting closer. "Jump now," Frank ordered. The stars stretched around them as they escaped. Behind them, the swarm of unknown things continued on their path, straight toward more human worlds. The day after Ambassador Collins' announcement, The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. The large chamber was filled with tension. Many representatives still did not believe the human claims. "Humans are known for their vivid imagination," said the Drovian leader, his blue crystal skin glittering under the chamber lights. "We demand proof of these so-called void harbingers." Admiral Patricia Gomes stepped forward. Unlike Collins, she wore a military uniform with rows of medals. Her gray hair was cut short, and her eyes showed she had seen many battles. "The Council deserves evidence," she agreed, "and we have brought it." She pressed a button on her wrist device. The air in the center of the chamber filled with a large hologram. It showed a green planet with blue oceans. "This was Terra Nova 3 months ago," she said. The image changed. Now the planet was gray and lifeless. No water, no green, just bare rock. "This is Terra Nova now." The chamber was quiet. Even the doubters could not ignore such evidence. "We have similar images from 5 other worlds," Patricia continued, "all following the same pattern. All in a direct path toward Council space." A small furry representative from the Yurhan species stood up. "Could this be a natural disaster? A new disease?" Patricia shook her head. "Dr. Martins will explain." Dr. Alan Martinez moved forward. He was younger than Collins and Patricia, with quick movements and alert eyes. He specialized in studying alien life forms. "What we face is not natural," he said. "The Void Harbingers don't simply destroy. They consume." He showed a new image. It was taken from a probe that had survived on one of the attacked worlds. The picture was blurry, but it showed large, dark shapes descending from the sky. They were changing shape as they moved, like living shadows. "They take all organic matter," Alan explained. "Plants, animals, people, even bacteria in the soil. They absorb it into themselves. Our analysis shows they use this material to grow and create more of themselves." The Avarian representative fluttered nervous wings. "How do they travel between worlds?" Ellen changed the image again. Now they saw something that looked like a massive, living ship. It was not made of metal, but of a dark, shifting material. Parts of it pulsed, like a giant heart. "They have organic mechanical ships," he said. "They don't use technology as we understand it. Their ships and their bodies are the same thing. They are a hive mind, sharing one consciousness across many bodies." The council leader, Vorkath, raised all 4 of his hands for silence as representatives began talking at once. "If what you say is true," he said to the humans, "why have we never heard of these creatures before?" A new voice answered. An old woman stepped forward from the human group. She wore simple clothes, not a uniform. This was Professor Jane Kerr, the leading human historian. "Because they have been here before," she said. Her voice was soft, but everyone heard her. "We found references in the ancient records of the Nexus Collective. 10,000 years ago, something similar attacked the Outer Rim. Many species were lost. The records are incomplete, but they suggest the threat eventually went dormant and moved beyond known space." She looked around the chamber. "They have awakened again, and they are hungry." The Zinthuri representative, normally calm and logical, spoke with a trembling voice. "If these calculations are correct, my homeworld lies directly in their path." Ambassador Collins stepped forward again. "Now you understand why we declared war. This is not a fight for territory or resources. This is a fight for survival. All our survival." He looked at each delegation in turn. "Humans are ready to fight, but we cannot win alone. We need the Council. We need ships, weapons, and warriors from every world." The council chamber filled with voices, some afraid, some angry, some determined. Vorkath struck his staff on the floor 3 times. When silence returned, he spoke. "We will vote tomorrow on the human request for a united defense force. Until then, this meeting is suspended." As the representatives filed out, Collins looked at Patricia. "Will they help us?" She watched the aliens leave, noting which ones looked determined and which looked ready to run. Some will, she said. The question is, will it be enough? The vote did not go as Ambassador Collins had hoped. Only 15 of the 30 major council species agreed to join the fight. The others chose to wait, to see if the threat was real or to focus on protecting only their own worlds. Collins sat in the human embassy, a tall building with large windows that looked out over the council city. The room was simple but elegant, with plants from Earth adding color. Around him sat his team of diplomats and military advisors. 15 allies is better than none, said Maria Johnson, his chief diplomatic strategist. She was young for her position, but her mind was sharp. She could see the angles others missed. Collins shook his head. It's not enough. The Void Harbingers destroyed entire worlds. We need everyone. Maria studied the holographic map floating above the table. It showed the council worlds, with red marks indicating the Harbinger's path. The Taurians have the strongest fleet, she said, pointing to a system marked in blue. But they haven't committed yet. They want something, Collins guessed. Maria nodded. Mining rights in the Crescent Nebula. They've wanted those for decades. Collins frowned. People are dying. Worlds are being consumed, and they want mining rights. They're business people first, Maria reminded him. Everything is a deal to them. Fine, Collins said after a moment. Offer them the rights, but only if they commit their full battle fleet. While Collins and his team worked on diplomacy, General Kevin Hayes was busy on Earth. He walked through a massive hangar where workers were building new warships. The sound of tools and machinery filled the air. Kevin had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in small conflicts between human colonies, but nothing like this. This was a fight for survival. How many ships will be ready in time? He asked the chief engineer. 50 by the end of the month, the engineer replied. Maybe 100 in 3 months, but the Harbingers will be here by then. Kevin nodded grimly. Then we need to slow them down. On the other side of the galaxy, Maria had arranged a meeting with the Elysians. They were masters of stealth technology. Their ships could become nearly invisible, perfect for scouting and surprise attacks. The Elysian leader, a tall being with pale skin and large eyes, listened to Maria's offer. You want our stealth ships to help your war, the Elysian said. What do humans offer in return? Territory, Maria replied. The Gamma Sector. It borders your space. It would be yours after the war. The Elysian's eyes narrowed. The Gamma Sector belongs to the Xanthari. The Xanthari are directly in the Harbinger's path, Maria said quietly. If we don't stop the enemy, there may be no Xanthari left to claim that territory. It was a hard truth, but one that needed to be said. The Elysian was silent for a long moment, then nodded. We will send ships. One by one, deals were made. Promises were given. Ships were committed. But time was running out. In a quiet corner of the council city, Collins met with an unexpected visitor. The being was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow slightly in the dim light. This was a representative of the Nexus Collective, an ancient and secretive species that rarely involved themselves in council matters. Your people know about the Harbingers, Collins said. Your records show they attacked before. The Nexus being's voice was like soft music. Yes, long ago, we fought. We nearly died. We hid. We can't hide, Collins replied. There are too many of us, spread across too many worlds. The Nexus being tilted its head. No, you must fight, and we will help you. It placed a small crystal on the table. The crystal glowed with an inner light. This contains the knowledge we have, weapons we created, defenses we built. It is yours now. Collins stared at the crystal. Why give this to us? Your people have always kept to themselves. The Nexus being's glow dimmed slightly. Because we remember what it is to face extinction. And because if the Harbingers consume all others, eventually they will find us too. As the being left, Collins held the crystal carefully. It might contain the key to survival. But would it be enough? And would they learn how to use it in time? The clock was ticking. The Void Harbingers were coming. Commander Olivia Clark stood on the bridge of her ship, the Swift Arrow. It was a small, fast vessel built for scouting rather than fighting. She and her crew of 20 had been sent to the edge of the Proxima Beta system. Their mission was to watch and report, not to engage. Olivia was tall and lean, with short blonde hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had served in Earth's space fleet for 12 years. This was her first command, and it had come at the worst possible time. Anything on sensors? She asked her science officer. Nothing yet, Commander, he replied. The system appears quiet. Proxima Beta was a mining colony. Not many people lived there, but it produced minerals needed for shipbuilding. The colony sat on the edge of an asteroid belt, rich with rare metals. According to their calculations, it lay directly in the path the Void Harbingers would take. Olivia checked the time. They had been watching for 3 days. Part of her hoped the humans were wrong, that the Harbingers would never come. Another part knew better. Commander. The sensor officer's voice was suddenly tense. Something just appeared at the edge of the system. Olivia moved quickly to his station. The screen showed several large shapes moving toward the inner planets. They were not normal ships. They seemed to pulse and shift, just like in the recordings they had been shown. How many? She asked. 5 large vessels, dozens of smaller ones. This was it. The enemy was here. Send the alert signal, Olivia ordered. Then move us behind the third moon. We need to stay hidden and observe. The Swift Arrow glided silently behind the small moon. From there, they watched as the Harbinger ships moved toward the mining colony. They're sending smaller craft down to the surface, reported the sensor officer. Olivia gripped the edge of her chair. There were 400 people on that colony. The evacuation ships were supposed to have reached them yesterday. Had they gotten away in time? Her communication officer answered that question. Commander, I'm picking up distress calls from the colony. The evacuation wasn't complete. Olivia faced a horrible choice. Her orders were clear. Observe and report. Do not engage. But people were dying down there. How many ships do we have? She asked her tactical officer. 3 scout ships including ours, Commander, all lightly armed. Not enough to fight 5 large enemy ships, but maybe enough to buy time for the colonists. Send a message to Fleet Command, Olivia said. Tell them the Harbingers are here, and we are engaging to protect the evacuation. She turned to her pilot. Take us in, full speed. Target the smallest enemy ship first. The Swift Arrow shot out from behind the moon, followed by the other 2 scout ships. They raced toward the Harbinger vessels, weapons charging. They haven't seen us yet, said the tactical officer. We'll have the element of surprise. Fire when ready, Olivia ordered. The Swift Arrow's energy weapons fired, striking the smallest Harbinger ship. The dark surface of the enemy vessel rippled where the beams hit. It didn't explode or break apart like a normal ship. Instead, it seemed to absorb the damage, then heal itself. Again, Olivia commanded. All 3 scout ships fired together. This time, the Harbinger vessel shuddered, and part of it tore away. They can be hurt, Olivia said. Focus fire on the same spot. But now the other Harbinger ships had noticed them. Dark, shifting shapes began to move toward the human vessels. Evasive maneuvers, Olivia shouted. Use the asteroid belt for cover. The 3 human ships darted into the dense field of rocks and ice. The Harbinger vessels followed but moved more slowly, their large size making it harder to navigate. Commander, the communication officer called out. The colony says the last evacuation ship is launching now. They need 10 minutes to reach safe jump distance. We'll give them that time, Olivia promised. For the next few minutes, the human ships played a deadly game of hide and seek among the asteroids. They would emerge, fire at the Harbinger ships, then dart back into cover. During one pass, Olivia noticed something strange. When they fired their engines near a Harbinger vessel, it seemed to recoil. The electromagnetic pulse from our engines, she realized. It disrupts them somehow. She quickly ordered all 3 ships to modify their engine outputs to create stronger electromagnetic pulses. When they fired these at the nearest Harbinger ship, it shuddered and stopped moving for several seconds. "It worked," her tactical officer shouted. "The evacuation ship has reached jump distance," reported communications. "They're safe." Olivia nodded. "Then our job is done. All ships, prepare to jump." As the swift Arrow prepared to leave, a Harbinger vessel suddenly appeared directly in their path. They had no time to avoid it. The information Commander Clark brought back changed everything. The Alliance now knew the Void Harbingers could be hurt by electromagnetic pulses, but they also knew that the enemy was stronger and more numerous than they had feared. 3 weeks after the battle at Proxima Beta, the leaders of the Alliance gathered on the human space station Unity. The station orbited Earth and was large enough to host representatives from all allied species. The main meeting room had a huge round table with the flags of each world displayed above their seats. "We cannot defend every world in their path," said Admiral Gomes. She pointed to the star map showing the Harbingers' advance. "They are attacking along a front that spans 12 star systems. We don't have enough ships." The Taurian representative, a broad-shouldered being with tough, gray skin, pounded his fist on the table. "Then we build more ships. We fight harder." "There isn't time," said a quiet voice from the back of the room. All heads turned. A man stood up from the shadows. He was older, with a lined face and tired eyes. This was Professor William Turner, once a famous military strategist. 10 years ago, he had been forced to retire after suggesting controversial tactics during a small border conflict. "Who invited him?" asked the Avarian representative, fluttering her wings in annoyance. "I did," said Ambassador Collins. "We need every mind we can get, even unpopular ones." Turner walked slowly to the center of the room. He studied the star map for a long moment. "Fighting the Harbingers at each world is a losing strategy," he said finally. "We will be spread too thin. They will overwhelm us one by one." "What choice do we have?" asked the Xanthari leader. "We cannot abandon our people." Turner looked at him with sad eyes. "Sometimes, to win a war, you must make terrible sacrifices." The room grew very quiet. Turner touched the map. "Instead of fighting everywhere, we retreat. We evacuate as many people as possible from these outer worlds. Then we gather our entire fleet here." He pointed to a region of space called the Helios Nexus, where many hyperspace lanes connect. "You want us to give up dozens of worlds without a fight?" The Taurian was angry now. "I want us to survive," Turner replied calmly. "The Harbingers follow a predictable path. If we set a trap at the Nexus, we can face them with our full strength. One battle, not 100 small ones." Admiral Gomes studied the plan. It could work, but the cost. "Millions of lives," Turner agreed. "Whole worlds lost. But billions saved if we win." The meeting erupted into angry arguments. Some representatives shouted that humans were sacrificing others to save themselves. Others saw the cold logic in Turner's plan. Ambassador Collins watched the chaos with a heavy heart. This was not why he had become a diplomat. He had wanted to build peace, not plan retreats and sacrifices. Maria Johnson leaned close to him. "They need a reminder of what we're fighting for," she whispered. Collins nodded and stood up. "Enough," he shouted. The room slowly quieted. "We are not discussing numbers on a map," Collins said. "We are talking about people, homes, children. I hate this plan as much as any of you, but I hate the alternative more." He walked around the table, looking at each representative in turn. "The Void Harbingers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything living and move on. If we fight them world by world, we will all die." He stopped at the star map and pointed to Earth, to the Xanthari homeworld, to each of their planets. "Sometimes victory requires terrible sacrifice. I'm asking you to make that sacrifice now, so that our children will have a future, any future." The room was silent. The weight of the decision pressed down on all of them. "We will vote," said the council leader Vorkath, who had joined the alliance. "Each world must decide." The vote took hours. Some representatives needed to consult their governments. Others could decide on their own. One by one, they cast their votes. When it was done, Collins looked at the results with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The plan had passed. They would set their trap at the Helios Nexus. Now they just had to convince their people to abandon their homes and hope that Turner's plan would work. As the meeting ended, Collins found Turner standing alone by the window, looking out at Earth. "Was there any other way?" Collins asked quietly. Turner didn't turn around. "No, not if we want to win. And we will win." Turner was silent for a long moment. "We'll know soon enough." Lieutenant Ryan Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked. The air on Vega Colony was hot and dusty. Most of the people had already left on evacuation ships. Only Ryan and his team of engineers remained, along with a few colony officials. "How much longer?" asked the colony governor, an older woman with worry lines on her face. "Almost done," Ryan replied. He connected the last wire to the colony's main power plant. "When the Harbingers land, this whole place will overload. Should take out at least one of their ships." Ryan was 30 years old, with strong hands and clever eyes. Before the war, he had helped build colonies. Now he was rigging them to explode. This was the 12th world his team had prepared. Each abandoned planet was turned into a trap. Power plants were set to overload. Terraforming equipment was reprogrammed to create storms or release toxic gases. The Helios Nexus glowed with the light of 3 nearby stars. Against this beautiful backdrop, the largest fleet ever gathered in the galaxy waited. Ships from 27 different species floated in careful formation. At the center was the Earth flagship Independence, a massive vessel with the most powerful weapons humans had ever built. Admiral Gomes stood on the bridge, looking out at the fleet. Beside her was Ambassador Collins, who had insisted on being present for this final battle. "Lieutenant Miller's data was the key," Gomes said quietly. "The Nexus scientists found a way to use the Harbinger's own communication signals against them." Collins nodded. "One brave man may have saved us all." Every ship in the fleet now carried a special device designed to broadcast on the exact frequency the Harbingers used to maintain their hive mind. The scientists weren't sure what would happen when they activated these devices, but they hoped it would disrupt the enemy somehow. "They're coming." The sensor officer's voice was tense but controlled. On the main screen, dark shapes appeared at the edge of the Nexus. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The Void Harbingers had arrived with a force far larger than anyone had expected. They'd been consuming worlds for months, Gomes said grimly, growing stronger with each one. Collins felt cold fear in his stomach, but he kept his face calm. The plan had to work. There was nowhere left to run. "All ships, battle positions," Gomes ordered. The human fleet moved to the front line, joined by the powerful Taurian vessels. Behind them, the Xanthuri ships prepared their energy weapons, while the stealthy Elysian craft disappeared from view, ready to strike from hiding. The Harbinger fleet moved forward like a dark wave. As they came within range, the Alliance ships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked across space. The front line of Harbinger vessels absorbed the hits. Some were destroyed, but more kept coming. "They're targeting our center," reported the tactical officer. "As we expected," Gomes said. "Maintain formation." The battle quickly turned against the Alliance. The Harbinger's adaptive technology seemed to learn from each attack. Weapons that worked minutes ago became less effective. Ship after ship reported heavy damage. Collins watched in growing despair as the Alliance fleet began to break apart. The formation that Professor Turner had designed was failing. "We need to use the signal disruptors now," he urged. Gomes shook her head. "We're not in position yet. We need to draw their main hive ships closer." On a nearby screen, Collins saw Lily Winters working frantically at her station. After discovering the Harbingers, she had been assigned to study their communication patterns. Now she looked up with sudden excitement. "Admiral, I found something in Lieutenant Miller's data," she called. "The Harbingers don't just use one frequency. They use a pattern that changes constantly. That's why our disruptors weren't going to work." She brought up a complex diagram on the main screen. "But if we broadcast this exact pattern, then suddenly change it here and here," she pointed to specific points on the diagram, "we might be able to create confusion in their network." Gomes studied the pattern. "How soon can you modify our disruptors?" "Minutes," Lily replied. "But we'll only get one chance." Collins looked at the battle outside. The Alliance was losing ships quickly now. "Do it," he said. As Lily worked, the Independence moved deeper into the fight. Several Harbinger vessels surrounded it, their dark surfaces shifting as they prepared to attack. "Disruptors ready," Lily announced. Gomes looked at Collins. He nodded. "For humanity," he said quietly. "Activate." Every Alliance ship broadcast the special frequency pattern at once. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Harbinger vessels began to move erratically. Some stopped completely. Others began firing on each other. "It's working," Gomes said. "All ships target the central high vessel." The Alliance fleet focused all their weapons on the largest Harbinger ship. Its surface rippled and bulged as it tried to heal itself, but the damage was too great. Finally, it broke apart in a massive explosion. Without their central ship, the remaining Harbinger vessels fell into complete chaos. Some tried to escape. Others continued to attack randomly. The Alliance ships hunted them down one by one. Hours later, the battle was over. The Alliance had lost nearly half its fleet, but the Void Harbingers were destroyed. On the damaged bridge of the Independence, Collins looked out at the stars. "What now?" he asked softly. Gomes stood beside him. "We rebuild. We remember. We prepare in case they ever return." Collins thought of all the worlds that had been lost, all the lives sacrificed. Was it worth it? Gomes didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, "Ask the children who will grow up because of what we did today." 1 year later, Collins stood before the Galactic Council again. The chamber had been rebuilt after suffering damage in the war. Representatives from all species were present, even those who had refused to join the fight. "The war is over," Collins told them. "But our work is just beginning. We have worlds to rebuild, refugees to resettle, and defenses to maintain." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. "Humans didn't go to war because we wanted to. We went to war because sometimes peace can only be secured through the willingness to fight for it." The Council voted unanimously to create a permanent defense force, with ships and soldiers from all worlds. Never again would the galaxy be caught unprepared. As Collins left the chamber, he looked up at the stars visible through the high windows. Somewhere out there, new threats might be waiting. But today, at least, there was peace.